Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel and the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. This is obviously Pro Wrestling Logic and the Victory Road review for, let's see, I believe the 18th of September. Yes, September 18th, 2021. I don't like these shows. I've mentioned that before. I think it's overreaching for a company that can barely pull 250,000 viewers nationwide to be doing special shows, but it's a sign of the time in the industry these days. Anyway, opening with Steve Mclean defeating TJP and Petey Williams. McClain and Williams have been feuding for a while. TJP has been a bit more heelish and antagonistic over the last little while as well. Williams goes straight for McClain to start the match, and Williams has a history to take him out. At one point, McLean takes out TJP on the ramp and nails a backbreaker, making it easier for him to focus on Williams. McLean dominates the match, and even when TJP comes back into the ring, eventually tries to pay attention to two men at the same time. Doesn't go very well. Still manages to hit corner spear on both TJP and Williams at the same time. Williams then ends up being the one making a comeback against McClain with springboard and gets DDT for near fall. McClain then is out of the match for a bit. TJP and Williams paired up, only for McClain to return and take them both out. All men get up, and TJP and Williams start to work together to take out McClain, but then they keep distracting each other. Williams then sends TJP to the floor and locks on a sharpshooter. TJP returns and goes for an octopus stretch, so McClain just powers out of it. Both holds get him where he wants to be. TJP then gets a near fall and gets the detention kick on McClain, tries to follow out with the Mamba Splash, but McClain moves and TJP goes straight into the Destroyer, but leaves himself open for mayhem for all by McClain. McClain pins TJP to win. Not a bad match, but certainly kind of a backward step in some ways. Laredo Kid defeats Trey Miguel, Jake Something, Black Taurus, and John Skyler. No real story here. Men kind of just doing matches for the sake of getting on the card, and really even in the win, there isn't a direction post-match. Everyone's trying to rise in the ranks. Match is okay. Clash their styles several times. Lucha and power moves are the main focus. Something and Skyler work on more power side, whereas Kid Miguel and even Taurus worked a bit more lucha. Innovative moves throughout. Miguel hits a Meteora on Something, who had Kid in a draping DDT on the same time, and then also Something takes down Miguel, Skylar, and Taurus with a single body block. Something chokeslam Kid on top of Miguel while he had Miguel in his hands. Two Taurus and Something. Laredo Kid manages final sequence where he gets his Laredo fly and gets a victory. Maybe he will challenge for the X Division belt somewhere down the road. Taylor Wilde with Jordana Grace and Rachel Ellering defeats Tennille Dashwood with the influence. Absolutely no one cared about this. They've been feuding for a while. Matches laid out like Dashwood matches are generally. Dashwood gains control early and gets distracted by Wilde. Dashwood keeps control until the referees are tired of both sides interrupting. Back to the match now, one-on-one Wilde and Dashwood after everyone gets kicked out. And they're trading a couple of near falls. Wilde dodges a spotlight kick and lands a bridging German suplex for the win. Match was fine, but honestly a waste of time. Hopefully the feud's over now. Gia Miller interviews Sami Callahan and Eddie Edwards about teaming for the first time ever. Callahan said that hell must have frozen over, but tells Edwards he wasn't the bad guy here. Edwards tells Callahan not to push it, and he joins Callahan because it's a necessary thing to do to bring down Moose and Morrissey. What an interesting name there. Callahan leaves Alicia Edwards, asked Eddie to be ringside since she didn't trust Callahan. Matt Cardona defeats Rohit Raju with Shira, no DQ match. They've been feuding for a while, for maybe a month or so. Cardona jumps Raju and Shira in the entrance and gets chokeslammed for his trouble by Shira before the match even begins. Once the match starts, Raju's in control and then quickly gets turned around by Cardona. Raju then works to regain control after catching Cardona between the ropes using a chair to go after Cardona's neck and throat back in the ring. And they both wind up with a big running cannonball. Cardona finally makes a comeback, and the strike exchange ends with Codebreaker. Raju Cardona follows up with a running kick and a chair himself, and later takes out the TKO on a garbage can. Last couple of minutes, see both exchange near fall. Raju superflexed Cardona into a bed of chairs, hit double foot stomp, but Cardona kicks out. Raju's about to finish. Cardona then gets taken out with a low blow, chair shot, and radio silence for a near fall by Cardona. Shira breaks up the pin outside the ring. Cardona hits radio silence on Shira on the ramp, but then they get back in the ring. Raju's ready to drive by, take out Cardona on. Raju then goes for the Pillmanizer on Cardona, but Chelsea Green comes out and makes the save. Cardona gets the win. Match was fine, but honestly not terribly necessary. Anyway, Bullet Club, Chris Bay, and Helikado, who I always pronounce his name wrong, defeat Juice Robinson and Dave Finlay. Two teams have been feuding since Jay White debuted on Impact, and Finn Juice chased him around. Matt sees Robinson get cut off early on Bay and Harukido. Then we see Robinson sells his injured leg, and that seems to focus for the Bullet Club throughout. Robinson eventually makes a small comeback, escapes. Finlay has a good hot tag, but after a couple of moves, gets cut off. Second time, babyface in peril, and then makes a comeback, gets rid of Hookado over the top rope, and then Blue Thunder Slam on Bay, tags Robinson in again. Robinson comes in, takes out Bay, along with Finlay, and Hookado hits Pescado, but Robinson comes back into the ring. Bay hits him with a chair over the injured knee, sets him up for a slam, and then Hookado gets a win. Moose and Morrissey defeat Callahan and Edwards with Alicia Edwards. I don't know. Was this necessary? Not really. Anyhow, I mean they've been feuding for a while, so I guess it's there, and you got to acknowledge it. Story behind this goes back quite a while. Edwards and Callahan basically have been feuding on and off for years. I don't know. At least they try. Match didn't take long, too slow, and also Callahan and Edwards have pretty good chemistry, dominating Morrissey for a bit. Quick tags. Moose and Morrissey join forces inside using power moves. Moose goes for the ripcord elbow. Callahan dodges that and then tags Edwards back in. Callahan and Edwards work together against Moose. Tiger Bomb. Morrissey then goes out, breaks up the pin. All four men in the ring. Callahan takes out Morrissey, hits the assisted brainbuster on Moose, but Moose kicks out in the near fall position. Callahan tags out again and tries to pile drive Moose, but eats a big boot from Morrissey, who's taken out by Edwards. And then Moose tries to come back with a kendo stick. Edwards dodged, and Piledriver takes him out from Callahan's back. And then Edwards threatens to use a kendo stick on Moose, but Morrissey reaches out and threatens to attack him. Alicia is outside, and then there's a distraction. Moose hits lights out on Edwards. Both men, Morrissey and Moose, both hit huge powerbomb on Alicia. Referee calls for help in the back. Edwards takes his wife away and leaves Callahan in the ring, who gets taken out by Moose and Morrissey for the win. Match is fine. I don't know. Yeah. Why wasn't it a no contest when the lady gets jumped? Who knows there? Knockouts Tag Team Championship. Decay, Rosemary, and Havoc defeat Steels and Savannah Evans to retain the titles. Steels has basically been trying to cut them off ever since the win of the championship match. Seems like Decay's in control early, running after Steels. Bell rings, does slow a bit. Striking tags between Rosemary and Havoc are pretty consistent. Then Havoc and Evans have a pretty intense exchange, tackles and strikes. Rosemary gets cut off after she ends up in Steel's bad position, and then Evans keeps them on the side of the ring, and the champions are upside down for a bit. Evans then is able to maintain control over Rosemary, but Steels tags in. Rosemary catches her with Desperation Crossbody, and then tag back to Havoc. Havoc and Evans' hoss battle fight continues. Rosemary takes a nasty-looking bump on the floor, but recovers, hits the mist on Evans, and then in the ring, Havoc military presses Steels on top of Evans, and Havoc pins Steels piledriver. Short, fast pace is what it is. Ace Austin cuts a promo about nothing being impossible in wrestling because if Christian Cage is able to return after a forced retirement, Austin could do the impossible and win the title tonight. He says he's the future of Impact Wrestling. I agree with this legitimately. And then has to jump over a bunch of hoops to get this far. Destination for him is inevitable and has been since day one. Tonight becomes the youngest world champion in Impact history. Wish that had actually happened, but not the case. Semi-main event position here, one of the three, I guess, semi-main events here. Impact Tag Champs, Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson defeat Rich Swann and Willie Mack to retain the titles. There had been issues going all the way back to Slammiversary on this. Starting pair-ups, all four men, comes down to Swann and Gallows. Swann gets cut off a bunch of times. Anderson takes control. Gallows dominates Swann and strikes and slams, but Gallows then tries to lock Swann in a hold. Swann gets free and gets into striking, fights back enough to escape to tag Mac. Mac goes nuts, Samoan drop on Gallows, pop-up forearm, and a sling blade variation for near fall. Mac then tries to get frog splash, but Good Brothers managed to cut him off, take him down. His spine buster on Mac, hesitated, and lands awkwardly on his knee. Good Brothers go for the Magic Killer only for Swann to save Mac. Mac then takes out Gallows with DDT. Anderson and Swann take each other out with cutters. Gallows on the apron bomb on Swann, but then taken out with a baseball slide from Mac, and then tries to return to the ring. Anderson catches Mac with a gun stun Magic Killer later, and the champions retain. Brothers look fine, but they're certainly not in Japanese shape by any stretch of the imagination. Anyway, we go to X Division match, semi-main event. Josh Alexander defeating Chris Sabin to retain the title. Obviously, Alexander trying to become the greatest X Division champion in the 20-year history of the company. 20 years? Almost. Anyway, so match is very good from the beginning, back and forth, less than 5 minutes. Dive from Sabin, and this is awesome chance. Less than 5 minutes in, both men go after each other's necks respectively. Alexander takes more damage in the early part of the match. Sabin gets nailed with a neck breaker and then goes into a front chancery. Sabin stays on the neck with strikes throughout. Alexander goes straight for the ankle lock, forcing Sabin to escape. Alexander has a chance to regain his footing and hit some offense on the neck once again. Neck holds and slams, and then quick pin attempts before Alexander starts to chase submission holds. Sabin then makes the ropes. Sabin tries to make comebacks, only for Alexander to return more viciously than before. Alexander starts to chase the C4, turns it into a powerbomb on the knee after Sabin blocks it. Sabin then goes after the arm and locks in a big crossface, turns it into a pin, and Alexander only gets 2 count. Sabin keeps going for the arm, but Alexander counters into a German suplex and O'Connor roll, and then Sabin comes up once again for the hammerlock. Alexander hits hard and overpowers Sabin and drops him with a destination side slam just as Sabin gets laid off there. Sabin chases the cradle shock, but Alexander counters into an ankle lock. Sabin comes up, reverses, and pins, but Alexander comes up, locks in. Sabin breaks up, rolling back into a pin. Alexander then hits a German suplex into a C4, wins the match, and definitely a match if you're a fan of either one of these guys worth going out of your way to see. Both men shake hands. Alexander is definitely a guy worth building around. I'm not necessarily sure that he's got the charisma to make it in a larger company, but definitely can carry something this small. Christian Cage defeats Ace Austin with Madman Fulton to retain the title. Austin wins the right to challenge at Emergence, defeating Sami Callahan, Moose, and Chris Sabin. Austin has been close to the title before, but never able to win it. Match starts with Cage bringing Austin down, out-wrestling him and showing him that he's pushed. Austin gets annoyed and relies on strikes, but doesn't really take control away from Cage, who obviously is the Hall of Fame veteran. Fulton makes his presence felt standing in front of Cage. Austin is able to catch Cage and kick to the back of the neck and cuts him off. Austin starts working over Cage's arm and back. Cage ends up on the floor even before he lands a hand on Christian Cage. Referee Hebner notes that Fulton is headed towards Cage and decides to kick him before he interrupts. Time to recover. Cage comes back into the ring and takes down Austin with a couple of chops. Second rope back elbow. Cage lands a reverse DDT for near fall after Austin is starting to gain some momentum. Cage goes for the spear. Austin dodges and then catches Cage with a spin kick for near fall. Cage then whiffs Austin's neck into the ropes, fails to land the frog splash from the top rope. Austin's distracted by the referee, allowing Fulton to sneak in and nail Cage. Austin manages a moonsault, but only gets a near fall. Cage catches Austin with a kill switch and nowhere gets the pin. Not bad. Before Cage could celebrate, though, the X Division champion comes out and says he wants option C, giving up the X Division title for a shot at the Impact Championship at Bound for Glory. Interesting way to go. Maybe they're building around Alexander for the future, but that's the way we got it, and we'll be back right after this.